You're watching the TCMMA podcast.
With probably the top story of the day, and that's Ronda Rousey going after the media and Joe Rogan and playing victim. Ronda Rousey, you're not a victim. You're a professional fighter. Don't give me this victim stuff. Rousey said she felt mistreated by UFC commentator Joe Rogan and other members of MMA media after back-to-back KO losses to Holly Holm and Amanda Nunes in 2015 and 2016. Why is she using Joe Rogan's name? Because that's going to get views. That's the bottom line. And Jimmy Smith went off, saying the people behind the scenes, camera people, audio people, the people you can push around and the people you can bully and the people you can talk down to can't stand her. Smith said, everybody behind the scenes that had to put a mic on Ronda Rousey couldn't stand her. I said, why? They said, she's a B to us from the moment she sat down to the moment she got up, right? So that's what's coming out about Ronda Rousey, who's now playing victim. He went on to say they were cheering when she got KO'd. This is what I was told. And he goes on and says, don't give me this victim stuff. I just don't want to hear it. Right? So Jimmy Smith just went in on Ronda Rousey. And why did he do this? To understand the context, we got to go back in time. So in order to do that, we got to go back in time. I mean, you have to. To put it all in context, you got to go back in history. So how did we get here? And we'll circle all back around to this topic. Why is Ronda Rousey getting slammed by the media, by multiple people for bringing up Joe Rogan and the media itself? So let's go back. At one point in time, men ruled everything. The household ruled women. Women had no rights. Not even in their own house, the right to vote, anything like that. And what happened is the men pushed it too far. For centuries and centuries, pushed it way too far. No rights for women. Zero. So eventually the women fought back. And you can look at the women's rights movement and its history and the beginning point at multiple times in history. But for me, it began when the men stopped coming home after work and they were hanging out at the bars and they were getting sloppy. Back then they were called taverns. And the women felt mistreated, right? Their man's not even coming home, and when he does, he's sloppy. So what'd they do? They went and destroyed all the taverns. They destroyed all the bars, knocked out windows, and just destroyed the bars. So now, men, where are you going to go, right? And women began to push this thing back to the middle, right? For obvious reasons, reasons that even men agree with. The right to vote, the right to have some equality in the household when it comes to raising the children and having choices and things like that. They had to push back to the middle, and rightfully so. And the women came together and made it happen. And at that point in time, it was virtually all women. Now it's a different story. When you say the women's rights movement, you hear the word women, but it's not all women, right? Because over time, once the women got it back to the middle, they started pushing it further and further and further. Now we're completely the other way. And this started in the 70s with no-fault divorce. Meaning you could just divorce your spouse for no reason. And the government would give you incentives, give you half the property, future earnings, the children, child support, alimony, etc. And see, men, we aren't good at fighting back. We aren't good at coming together as a team and fighting back and keeping everything in the middle. We allowed it to go way too far to one side now. To the point where, you got over 100,000 men in prison for child support. They'd rather be out working, enjoying their life, seeing their children, and more importantly, raising their children. They even created a word called deadbeat dads. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. As if anyone could have a child and not love their child and want to see their child and be in their child's life. Yeah, there's some that don't, I'm sure. And men aren't the only ones. There's women who get the short end of the stick too and go to jail for child support and never get to see their children, whatever it may be. But these are just some examples of the pendulum swinging. Men have all the rights. It comes back to the middle. Women push it far, far, far to one side. And again, we as men aren't good at fighting back. But what has happened in recent times is we may not have to fight back because the women's rights movement will destroy itself by attacking, guess who? Women. How? Look at what's going on in women's sports. Trans women are now competing in women's sports, which, you know, I don't have a dog in that fight. But if you start attacking women's sports, you're going to divide women, right? Because women got to stand up for themselves. And you're seeing this. Joe Rogan just had a young woman on his podcast that lost the swimming NCAA title to a trans woman. And again, I'm not trying to even dig deep into that because that's not my MO. But what I'm telling you is this is what's going on in recent times. It was all the way in one direction. Women got it to the middle, rightfully so, and then started pushing and pushing and pushing some more. And we as men don't fight back because we're not one team. And now you can be divorced for no reason. You can go in front of a stranger, in this case a judge, and that judge is going to tell you when and where you can see your children. And when you don't see your children, you got to pay for that time. And God forbid you don't get 50-50 and you only get like every other weekend, which I know a lot of men that have every other weekend and not 50-50, and their child support is through the roof. They can't afford to live. And men, and women too, but men, I can only speak for men because I am a man. Men don't know how to fight back. Men feel like inside they're the protector of the household. Whether that's true or not, that's just how men feel inside, that we are going to protect our children. We will, in fact, die for our children if we have to. We are the protector of the household in our minds. And the moment you go in front of a judge and the judge tells you, you can't see your child for 1 minute on a Saturday, right? It's way worse than that, but that's just 1 minute. You instantly take away that protective nature from a man, and it's just not normal. And it's not normal the other way either. It's not normal for a judge to tell a woman she can't see her children, because even if it's 50-50, you're telling both sides you can't see your child half the time. Then when you get to court, there's all these incentives to get more than 50-50, because the more time you have, the more money you get. It's all broken down by 365 days a year, how many overnights you have. That's the percentage. And then it gets multiplied by the income. And the less you have your children, the more you pay. And there's all types of annex in court going on, from abuse accusations and the like, in order. And some of them are validated, don't get me wrong. But you have all these things going on because it allows you to potentially get more time. In some cases, you got to wait 6 months to a year to get to court to be able to fight those accusations. And by that time, your kids are out of your life. And for those cases where a person, man or woman, did nothing wrong, that's an agonizing situation. So this is important to understand because we're living at a time now where it's all the way to one side. So when you have a woman like Ronda Rousey, who now comes out, and understand, UFC is a male-dominated sport. Like, it's 90% male viewership. Easy, and that's just being nice. It's probably more like 97, 98%. You're in a male-dominated sport. You're a professional fighter, one of the most elite warriors on the planet. And now you're going to play the victim card? Well, in this male-dominated sport, we aren't having it. We know you're not a victim. And that's why you get this major pushback from a guy like Jimmy Smith and others who are coming to Joe Rogan's defense as if he needs us to defend him. The guy can KO pretty much almost anyone on the planet if he really wants to. His leg kick, I mean, you know, not anyone, not the elite, but that dude don't need anyone to defend him. But the bottom line is for Ronda Rousey to come out and say, oh, they came after me and they hurt my feelings, along those lines. We're not having it. We are not having it. But it's very important to understand the context at the time we're living in, because the fight to push it back to the middle is coming. And I've said this a lot of my life. We may not be alive to see it, but this is a case with Ronda Rousey where this is a ripple, where the pushback begins. Trans women in women's sports, that will take care of itself, because that has divided women across the board. And even push some that might have been in the women's rights movement back to the middle. Say, wait, I didn't sign up for this. So that's the time we're living in, and that's important to understand. When you see someone like Ronda Rousey, a warrior of the world, one of the baddest women on the planet, say, they tease me. They hurt my feelings. I'm a victim. And why do you do that? Because when you do that, the media eats it up. People put posts all over social media. It's in the media itself. Everybody's talking about it. When someone plays the victim card, they get attention. And that's a soft way to be very blunt with you and say in a respectful way. That's a very soft way to go about life. And maybe someone else gets away with it, but not one of the baddest women on the planet who made millions in the sport and then comes back and says, they didn't do me right. They offended me and I'm a victim. We're not having it. We are not having it. So that was a brief history lesson, right? I don't often go on tangents like that anymore. But you have to understand the context. If you're sitting around saying, well, why would Jimmy Smith do that? Why would he go after Ronda Rousey? She's just stating how she felt and what her opinion is. No. So what if the media turned on you? Maybe the media turned on you because you caused that to happen. Maybe you made enemies that when you lost, everybody was cheering. Especially for the two people who beat you, and Amanda Nunes and Holly Holm. The media and Joe Rogan didn't turn on you. You turned on yourself based off the way you acted. And everything comes full circle. And everything slides one way or the other, but it always comes back to the middle.
He's gon' fight, he's gon' fight. Hold your breath till the end of the night. Last fighter call, UFC at its height. Bringing that thunder with all his might. Saying, step up, wanna fight? Hold up, think twice. Gladiator, assassin, reckless, no abandon. Walk through that cage, he'll leave your ass stranded.